Good evening. This is Ed Reed, Program Director at Faircount. I hope that you and your family are safe and healthy during this time. We're delighted that Black men from across Georgia are joining us this evening for a very lively discussion on the critical importance of the 2020 census, specifically what it means for Black men across the state of Georgia. We're holding this Black Men Count telephone town hall event as a part of our Census in the South Road to Recovery virtual bus tour. And we're partnering with this bus tour with Pluribus Unum. The road to recovery from COVID-19 is going to be long, but we will get there. And when we do, we will need to be sure that our communities have thriving local economies, fully funded health care in case we get sick, schools that are not overcrowded, and programs for our kids who need them. We have an exciting slate of Black men, including local and state leaders from across Georgia tonight. And we want this conversation to be very interactive. So if at any point during the conversation you want to ask a question, all you have to do is press 9 on your phone at any time to get in line to ask a question. Again, press 9 on your phone at any time to get in line to ask a question. This is going to be an interactive conversation. Thank you to those that are joining currently. We appreciate your time. Again, we're on the line with Black men, local and elected leaders from across the state of Georgia. We're going to talk about the importance of the 2020 census and what it means for our communities. Again, if at any point during the conversation you wish to ask a question, all you have to do is press 9 on your phone to get in line to ask a question. I'm going to start by introducing our special guest tonight. And first, I want to turn to Reverend Thurman Tillman with the U.S. Census Bureau. Reverend Tillman, would you like to say hello to our listeners on the call tonight?
Greetings. Thank you, Brother Reed, and greetings to everyone. Glad you're on this call. This is a very, very important time in our nation, a very important time, and I am ecstatic. I am elated. I am so glad that we're taking the time. Even though we're right at the last moment, we have to get this census done. Everybody has to participate by September of 2020, by September 30th of this year. And I'm excited for the opportunity to talk with all of the men who are on, with everybody who's sharing on today. I've been with the census for a number of years, an opportunity serving as a partnership coordinator for our partnership program. And I'm excited. We know that on tonight, we have a lot of discussions. Hopefully we can answer every question that anyone has and be able to get out to tell everyone, participate now. Don't wait any longer. Don't put it off any longer. Participate because it's extremely important that everyone gets counted in the 2020 census.
Thank you so much, Reverend Tillman. We're going to hear a little bit more from him in a bit. For those of you just joining tonight's call, you're on a live telephone town hall conversation discussing the importance of the 2020 census and what it means for Black men across Georgia. We want to hear your questions and concerns, so press 9 to raise your hand to ask a question. Again, press 9 on your phone at any point during this conversation to ask a question. I now want to turn to introduce our next special guest, Mr. Isaiah Hughley, who is City Manager for the City of Columbus, and he also is a co-chair of our Black Men Count initiative. Mr. Hughley, would you like to say hello to our listeners tonight?
Yes, thank you, Ed, and hello, listeners. I am Isaiah Hughley, City Manager of Columbus, Georgia. I'm happy to be a part of this Black Men Count telephone town hall event and Census in the South Road to Recovery virtual bus tour. Thank you for joining us tonight to help get the word out. To have an undercount of our population in the census count is a threat to us in more ways than one. We must not let this happen. Get on board, complete the census, and make sure that your family, friends, and community do the same. It's about money. It's about fair representation. It's about redistricting. Join us, and let's get this done. I look forward to the discussion and your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Hughley. Again, press 9 at any point on your phone if you would like to ask a question. We're delighted to have over 4,000 folks already with us this evening to discuss the 2020 census and the need to ensure that Black men are counted this year. So press 9 on your phone at any time to ask a question. Our next special guest, Commissioner Michael Guttel, who serves as the chairman of the Wilkinson County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner, would you like to say hello to our listeners tonight?
Good evening, and hello, listeners. And I'm happy to be a part of this meeting, this virtual meeting today. And I just want to say, let's just stay motivated and let's keep pushing all the way to the end to get everybody counted. If you know somebody, tell them about it. Even if you don't know if they done been counted already or not. Tell them. And let's stay motivated just to get counted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gotel. We will hear more from him as well in a bit. If you would like to get in line to ask one of our distinguished guests a question tonight, press 9 on your phone at any time. In addition to your live questions, we will also have a few poll questions about the 2020 census that you all can weigh in on right from your living room or your couch tonight. And now I want to introduce someone who's probably not a stranger to many on this call, but now introducing Representative Al Williams of the 168th District. Representative Williams, would you like to say hello to our listeners tonight?
First, thank you, Ed. Thanks for bringing us together. I'm honored to be here. I was sitting here thinking, and this is my 6th census directly participating in. As a matter of fact, in 1970, I was convinced to come in and get involved by Reverend Tillman's father, the Reverend E.C. Tillman of Brunswick, Georgia. So I've been around a while. Of course, you know, I was about a year or two old then. But remember, folks, this is so vitally important. The difference is now we have to fight to get everybody counted. In my first count in 1970, we had to fight to get the money after we counted, because it was a lot different than it is now. The fight just started after you got counted. A lot of folk wanted a disproportionate share and wanted to forget some folks. But thank God it's different. But it's just as important. We've got to step up to the plate. We have got to be counted. We've got to let everybody know it. And we've got to let our preachers know it. On Sunday morning, don't ignore the census. And it's so important. I'm so glad to be here. I look forward to questions. I look forward to getting off this call and just pushing forward, making sure we do it and do it right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Williams. As you can see, tonight's conversation is going to be very lively. We hope to get to as many questions as possible. Thank you to all of those on the line for joining us thus far. We're up to about 6,000 folks so far that have joined us live here on the line. So thank you so much for joining us again. We're on with leaders from across the state of Georgia talking about the role of black men when it comes to the 2020 census. Press 9 on your phone if you would like to ask a question. So if there's something you've been wondering about related to the census, you have a question, maybe you're on the fence about participating, now is an opportunity for you to get your questions answered. Press 9 on your phone to get in line. The Urban Institute estimated that over 1.7 million black people could be undercounted in the 2020 census. At varying amounts in each state, the undercount of 1.7 million black people could result in a loss of over $3 billion in federal funding every year for the next 10 years. Think about how devastating that would be. Historically, black men in particular have experienced high net undercount rates in the census, with some age groups being undercounted by 10% in the last census count. So that was in 2010. So we really have a lot of work to do, even here in the next few weeks, to ensure that as many people are counted as possible. I want to now, we have a couple more special guests to introduce tonight, and I want to go to Mayor Ron Johnson, City of Donaldsonville in Seminole County. He's our next guest. Mayor Johnson, would you like to say hello to our listeners tonight?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Ed, and everyone else. Humble would be the word that I use to be on this call with all you fine, distinguished gentlemen. I want to speak to everyone that's at home listening. I'm probably the babe out of everyone. And to say, to say that this is important would be an understatement. One of the things that I often talk about on my day-to-day walk is the education. And people don't understand the significance and the importance and how vital it is to get the census done. And I was fortunate. One of the things I've implemented is relationships. We serve a relational God, and a lot of people miss that because they think it's about tradition and religion, but it's not. This past weekend, I formed a relationship with 2 young women out of Atlanta, and in a little over 2 hours, we got over 30 people. I think we got like 36, 35, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in there. We got them, and we got their census done. So just in Southwest Georgia, with us being like dead last in the country in terms of response rate, that was huge for us. But we still have a long ways to go. The city of Donaldsonville itself, I think we're now around about like a 54, maybe 53% response rate, and that's not good. So if you're at home and you're listening, please, if you have not, please do your census if you haven't done it yet. And if you have done it, thank you so much. Encourage someone else to do their census, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Johnson. We really appreciate that. Again, to all you listening in, just press 9 on your phone if you would like to ask a question. Now introducing our last special guest before we get into some of the dialogue and take your questions live. We want to go to Representative Derek Jackson. Representative Jackson, would you like to say hello to our listeners tonight?
Yes, good evening, and thank you, Ed. Thank you for putting this on. I think it's a very important town hall conference call. As it was stated, I'm Derek Jackson. I represent District 64. And when you think about District 64, I cover 2 counties. On one county, we have a 75% census response, and on the other county, we're roughly at 45%. To me, I think both of those are unsatisfactory. And so let me just dispel a couple of myths. The census has absolutely nothing to do with child support. The census has absolutely nothing to do with citizenship. The census is strictly just asking, if you are breathing, you should be counted. This is my 4th census that I have participated in. The first one was 1990, my second was 2000, then 2010, and then 2020. The reason why I say that is because when you think about just African-American men alone, those who did not participate in 2010, nearly 170,000 in the state of Georgia, and you multiply that by $1,700, that's $289 million just because the African-American men in Georgia did not participate. Let's say it's another 170,000 in 2020. This time, instead of $1,700, it's $3,600 per person. That's $612 million that the state of Georgia will not get back every year for 10 years because African-American men did not do their part. And so I am delighted to be on this call to encourage all of us, all African-American men, to do your part to ensure that those necessary dollars, there are resources to make sure that our schools, the infrastructure, health care, et cetera, that we're going to be talking about this evening, are not only those are mandates, but they get the necessary resources to improve our quality of life in our community.
Thank you so much, Representative Jackson, for that. We're going to go to our first poll question for our audience and listeners here in just a second. So we're going to go to our first poll question. So those of you at home on your couch, in your living room, go ahead and get your phones ready so you can respond to this poll by indicating a number on your phone. Our first poll question of the night is, how many people on tonight's call have already completed the 2020 census? Again, how many people on tonight's call have already completed the 2020 census? If the answer is yes, go ahead and hit 1 on your phone. If the answer is no, hit 2 on your phone. Again, how many people on tonight's call have already completed the 2020 census? Hit 1 for yes, I have completed the 2020 census. Hit no for I have not. And we're going to wait a second for those results to come in. But again, we want to make sure that everybody listening in has an opportunity to participate in this poll. Let us know sort of how the rates are going right now. Because if you've already completed it, then there's still work to do to ensure that everyone else in your family, your workplace, and your community has also completed the census. So we'll give you a few more seconds. Again, if you're interested in asking a question, get in line to ask a question about the census or to one of our distinguished guests, and we'll take you live here on the call. So I'm looking in at the results. Overwhelming majority, over 80% of folks so far said yes, they have completed it. So we're in good company, but we still have some folks that need a little convincing, it looks like. So hopefully by the end of tonight's call, we can get them into the right place to ensure that they are counted this year. We're so glad that thousands of you have taken the time to join us on tonight's call to discuss the critical importance of the 2020 census and what it means for Black men. Go ahead and press 9 again on your phone if you want to ask a question. If inaccurately represented in 2020, Georgia could lose upwards of $3,600 for every person who goes undercounted. In addition to funding losses, undercounting also affects political representation, economic development opportunities. And so FairCount is partnering with Pluribus Unum on this virtual bus tour, which is spanning across 6 states in the Southeast. And so tonight is one of our series of events. You can find out more information by visiting censusinthesouth.org, censusinthesouth.org to find out more information about this virtual bus tour. I want to now start by asking some questions of our distinguished guests before we get into questions from our listeners at home. My first question is going to be for Mr. Isaiah Hughley out of Columbus, Georgia. First, thank you so much for all you've done with Black Men Count. You've been serving as a co-chair really from day one, so we really appreciate your efforts with the Black Men Count initiative. You know, you've been very instrumental in ensuring that Black men in Georgia are going to be counted in 2020, but also into expanding Black Men Count to a national initiative. You're uniquely positioned right now as a Black man, but also as city manager of a large city in Georgia. Talk to us a little bit about why you've made the census such a priority.
Ed, yes, thank you for the question. Let me just say the first reason the census is a priority to me is a selfish reason. I'm city manager of Columbus, Georgia. I'm competitive in that I want Columbus, Georgia to be the second largest city in the state of Georgia. There's a back and forth debate of whether the second largest city is Columbus or Augusta. The difference in population between the two cities is about 1,000 people. If Columbus can outperform Augusta in the 2020 census count, we can put this debate to rest. It can define Columbus, Georgia as officially the second largest city in Georgia. So my first reason is selfish. Secondly, the census is a priority to me because it's about the money. An undercount in the 2020 census would result in a loss of millions of dollars annually to our communities, and you've heard some of those numbers tonight from some of our guest speakers. The census is a priority to me because it's about the distribution of more than $675 billion in federal funds to states, cities, and counties. The census is a priority to me because it is used to reapportion the House of Representatives, determining how many seats Georgia will get. That's important. It is about redistricting the boundaries of congressional and state legislative districts and city council and school board districts here in my city and cities across Georgia and across this nation. So we must be fairly and accurately represented, and the only way we can be fairly and accurately represented is to make sure we have a fair and accurate count. I want a fair and accurate count, and wanting a fair and accurate count makes the census a huge priority to me. So it is indeed a priority to me in Columbus, Georgia, for our city and for so many other reasons for the state of Georgia. The priority has been and is a priority to me.
Thank you so much, Mr. T, for that. And, you know, we don't shy away from a friendly competition, so we're all on board with that. Whatever it takes to get as many people counted in Georgia as possible. So we got you. For those of you just joining tonight's call, welcome to this interactive conversation with local and state leaders from across Georgia, talking about the importance of the 2020 census and what it means, for Black men. So we want to hear your concerns, your questions. Press 9 on your phone to get in line. I want to now go to someone who's no stranger to census counts. He in his introduction talked about his involvement in the past, but he's also uniquely positioned as a man of faith, but also someone working with the Census Bureau on a daily basis to ensure that communities across Georgia are counted, and that's Reverend Thurman Tillman. So you've been on the front lines with the census for a while now. Break it down for us. Why should Black men participate in the 2020 census? What's in it for them?
Thank you so much, Ed. Listen, when we talk about what's in it for them, first I got to thank Representative Al Williams, again, who mentioned that he's been participating with the census since 1970. Now, of course, he was just a little boy then, but he participated along with my dad, and he's now in that district my dad used to be in when he was in the House of Representatives for the state. I have been participating with the census since 1990 because my dad said to me that they were really trying to start this program of making people aware of the census because people, if they were aware of it before it came out, they would participate. And so the partnership program started on making people aware of the census were coming so people would participate. They used to get the paper form. You only got it in paper. The only way you could respond was on paper. But now for this census in 2020, you can respond online at my2020census.gov. That's my2020census.gov. The first time that everybody has an opportunity to respond online. But you can also call in. Yes, you can also call in and do it. Last census, you would call in and they would tell you how to complete it. This census, you get a chance to go ahead and call in and someone would do it for you. So those are the many avenues as well as the paper form that you receive. Now, when I was asked this question, what's in it for us? What's in it for black men? Why should we participate? You've already heard about the money. And when you heard a little earlier, when Representative Jackson talked about the fact that there was so many, you lose so many millions of dollars if somebody does not participate. You got to keep in mind you lose those millions of dollars every year. So you could go 10 times, multiply 10 times the figures that he gave you, and that's how much we'll lose because whatever figures we get, we're stuck with for the next 10 years. Now, this is very important. When you ask what's important, what's in it for them, and I have to break it down to where a lot of people who read things and care about the money and care about roads, care about making sure there's enough food programs and all of this, but there's sometimes that does not faze some people. All of that does not faze them. I'll be on the road doesn't have to be the smoothest road. My children gone. I don't have to care about all the children in school. I don't care about this. I'm doing pretty good. Well, listen, let me put it this way because I had to say this for a group one time who was discussing what's in it for them. And this was a group of young ladies, who were saying to me basically they weren't really interested in the census. It's not all that important or whatever else. Let me tell you, lastly, quickly, what's interesting. It's the data, the information that comes from the census. Everybody uses census data in order to do grants, in order to justify or not justify giving money or building things in certain communities or putting restaurants or putting grocery stores. They do it all based upon census data. But still, you say, what that has to do with me, Pastor? Okay, well, let me break it down. There might be some single men on this line. The data can show. I said to these ladies, I said, listen, do you want to know the number of men, and it breaks down by race, by black, do you want to know the number of black men who live in your city, your town, live in your census tract between the ages of 25 and 35 or 35 and 45? It's all in the census data. You go look and it tell you how many men are in this particular area. Some people want to determine some ladies determine what city they want to move to based on how many men might be in that area. So it's very important that black men get counted. I'm just saying, it's just very important that we all get counted because it means a whole lot to our entire community.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's what you call keeping it real right there. And I hope that's answered somebody's question tonight. But that certainly is keeping it real, and so we appreciate that and saying what's in it for them. There's so many other ways, and we talked about the funding, the $1.5 trillion annually to states, cities, and counties across the country that is allocated based on the census. We think about this virtual bus tour that we're doing right now, but 58% of African Americans live in southern states and the District of Columbia. And southern states have the highest percentages of black populations in this country. What aspect of the census is most concerning to you right now? Press 9 on your phone to get in line to ask a question. I'm going to go to Representative Williams here with the question, and then after Representative Williams, we're going to go to one of our audience members, a question on the line tonight. Fair Count was honored to partner with the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, Representative Williams, last year to promote the census and encourage participation, and you've been very instrumental and pivotal in the work that we've been able to do together. Historically, communities of color have been deemed hard to count for the census. As a state legislator who represents a large rural community, what do you think are some of the challenges related to being counted this year?
Ed, it's always been a challenge, but it's even greater this year. Let's just start with COVID. COVID-19 has presented a new challenge. African American men have always been undercounted. In my county alone, which did around 70% 10 years ago, we lost $280 million as a result of an undercount. Now, we take into account that I had an entire division of the Army deployed at the time, and at the time, the Army would not let us count them. So we lost 8,000 people there. And there is a bigger distrust of government this year than I have ever seen. So a lot of people don't trust anything. And you have to convince them that in addition to the outline that Representative Jackson gave, not welfare, not nationality, got to let folk know your prison record does not stop you from being counted. We disproportionately have African American men with a record, some still on probation, but a parole does not stop them. We have to overcome these challenges, and we have to overcome them by many of us going into the communities like we tried to do here in Liberty County, literally one-on-one, explaining the benefits. Rural Georgia, hospitals are still closing. Census has a lot to do with that. A lot of black men come and they get, well, there's nothing to do here. We want a bowling alley. The census determines if you have the population in any given place or the interest to build a bowling alley. Many services are because of your count. We have a goal, and we're working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Omegas and several other fraternity groups, get African Americans counted, because we want to do 90 plus at least. Our military installation's already done 100%. We definitely do. And as rural African Americans, this is one of the most important things you will do over the next 10 years.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Williams, for putting it in perspective like that. And we know you've been on the ground doing the great work, and so thank you so much for talking about those challenges and then also talking about solutions. Because it's one thing just to talk about challenges, but it's good to have those solutions there as well. So we appreciate that. For those of you just joining, again, you can press 9 to ask a question. We're going to go now live to our first listener question from the audience, and we're going to go to Mr. Arthur Radney out of Buena Vista, Georgia. Mr. Arthur Radney out of Buena Vista, Georgia. We're going to go to you live on the call, and you're unmuted, Mr. Radney, so if you want to go live with your question tonight. Mr. Radney from Buena Vista? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm here. I would like to know why they start letting people come to the senior citizen where they ain't able to get around, where they can do this census, fill the census out. Because there's a lot of senior citizen people in Buena Vista, they don't know about this census, and they need somebody. I know they see it on TV all the time saying, come on and do the census, come on and do the census, but a lot of other people here need help with that because they don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Mr. Radney, for that question. I don't know, Reverend Tillman, if you want to answer that. It seems like, he's in a senior center there that's wondering how they might be counted. They have not been counted to date, and he wants to know how they might be counted at this point. You want to offer any guidance or feedback to Mr. Radney in Buena Vista?
Yes, we have what we call ACOs, area census offices throughout. and those officers are the ones who are charged with actually doing the count. The part I'm in is we're just making sure people are aware of it. There was an operation called group quarters. Any group quarters where seniors might have been and they were living there together, that should have been taken care of by whoever administers the group quarters. But in other areas, any place else, if you're talking about seniors at home, if they have not participated, an enumerator will knock on the door. Now, we know that a lot of people don't want people coming knocking on their doors, especially as Representative Williams already talked about with COVID-19 being there. But any census employee that comes and knock on the door, any enumerator, they will knock on the door, they will back up, they will have a mask on, and they will have identification to show that they are a census employee, that they are a numerator, a census taker. And they can take the information for whoever it is. The seniors, they will listen, they will input the information and get it right in there for them. Now, others can call, but I can tell you all of the various community organizations around all of our churches, I am Baptist, but I really have to give props to Bishop Reginald Jackson of the AME Church, who have said to all of his churches, all of the AME churches, that they will be complete count centers. And through our faith community, the Baptists are in on it, Reverend K.B. Martin and others are in on it as well. But our various churches can actually have people who can explain to others about the importance of the census and can show you how to get help to get it done. But the first answer is in the senior citizen complex should have been counted through what we call group quarters operation. And if you believe there's one that has not been counted, make sure you get that information to Brother Reed or get it to just any one of us, and we'll make sure that they follow up on it and make sure it's counted, because we need to get everybody counted.
Ed,
thank you so much for that,
Reverend Tillman. Too?
Yes, Representative Williams. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And another thing, most of the senior centers down my way closed for COVID. It's been a long time since they've gone every week or every day like they have been doing. So you have to kind of follow the directions of Reverend Tillman on that, because you're not going to be able to just walk in now and encourage people. Same with nursing homes. COVID has changed how we operate. So you have to follow those directions he gave, because you can't walk in and check off right now.
Yes, that's very, very critical information and guidance there. And to Reverend Tillman's point, we'll make sure that on Fair Count's end, we'll follow up with Mr. Ratney offline and make sure that, in fact, the facility there in Buena Vista, Georgia, is and has been counted to date. So thank you for the question, and also thank you for the response. I'm going to go now to Mayor Ron Johnson out of Seminole County, who's on with us as one of our panelists. You are a recently elected mayor, and I recently read that you are committed to bringing a community center to the city there. The Census directs funding across more than 300 federal programs, including services like WIC, SNAP, community health clinics, school lunch programs, and many more. Tell us a little bit about the need for these services and a community center. What benefit do you think they will have for Black men in your community?
The first thing I want to do is piggyback off of Reverend Tillman and Representative Williams when they talked about bowling alleys, restaurants. And there's definitely a need here in Donaldsonville. Our population is right under 9,000. And at the 2010 census with the city of Donaldsonville, our population was around about 2,650. And a lot of times I hear it a lot, we need a McDonald's, we need an Arby's, but I'm like, okay, have you done your census? And then people get quiet. Well, I don't see a need to do the census. And I'm fortunate we have council members. We've actually, the past few weekends, we've been setting up at different areas in Donaldsonville and in the county. And, we're asking people, have you completed your census? And we get people who haven't to complete their census. But I meet a lot of people who are like, the government doesn't need to know where I stay. Or you meet a lot of people, there's no need for it. But there's a vital need, because there is not really a lot of things to do here in Donaldsonville. So it's imperative that we get that funding so we can get a bowling alley or a restaurant and things like that. And me being a Black man, for Black men, one outlet is athletics, it's sports. We need something here as a beacon and a symbol of hope. But one of the things that I've talked about throughout the course of, the last few months was you have a part to play. And being a part of the solution is you playing your part as a citizen of your county in your town. So there are certain things that you have to do as a citizen in order to get the results that you're complaining about. So there's a vital need, and for black men in terms of getting something like that, it's definitely needed because we all know that trouble is hard to get into, but it's hard to get out of.
Amen. Thank you for that, and so thank you so much for the service that you do. And I learned tonight also as an educator, which I know is also sort of a different theme of education happening right now in this very remote virtual space that we're in. So thank you for all you're doing on that front as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I want to go now to bring Representative Derrick Jackson into, and want to talk about a part of the census impacts that we talked about at sort of a high level here just a second ago, but I want to bring it more down to earth here. But political representation from local school districts to Congress is largely impacted by census data. So redistricting is slated to take place next year through the state legislature. But why is having an accurate count crucial to this process of redistricting, Representative Jackson?
Ed, I appreciate the question, and it's an excellent question because this shows the exact power of each vote and while each vote matters. The party that's in power gets the opportunity to draw the lines. So when you think about, as you stated in the question, local school districts and congressional district lines, the party that's in power really is the driver's seat for drawing the lines. Think about Georgia. There was one time that Georgia did not have 14 congressional seats. There was one time that Georgia wasn't the 8th largest state of the 50 states. Now we are. And so as citizens continue to migrate from one state to another state, the population shifts, right? If you think back in the late 50s, there was a huge migration from the south to the north for a plethora of reasons, right? And so that's the reason why, take the state of New York, for example, it has a lot of congressional seats. It's a very large state. California is another large state. And so Georgia is the 8th largest state. And so we have 14 congressional seats. And so Georgia continues to grow. The reason why that is important, gentlemen, is because when you think about the grand scheme of what we're talking about, as it was already mentioned by a number of panelists, about the money and resources and what those resources do. The last time I checked, education remains the greatest equalizer in our society. And so when you think about school districts, it's important that those school district lines are balanced and neutral, and making sure that all the schools get the proper resources. And this pandemic has clearly exposed how fragile our school system is in one side of the train track, but on the other side of the train track, it shows how equipped a school system where every child has a laptop, every child has access to broadband and 5G, etc. Whereas, let's take rural Georgia, where my good friend, Representative Al Williams, those children need to get a superior education just like the children in the city of Atlanta. There should be no disparity. But when the census helps us look at these things at the granular level, down to how equipped schools are, the infrastructure, healthcare, wraparound services, Head Start, block grants for community, mental health services, the nutritional assistance programs, right? And so we have 1.8 million children in our public school system in the state of Georgia, and all 1.8 million students should get the absolute best education, regardless of zip code. And because again, I finished off this response to your question, Ed, the way I started. Education remains the greatest equalizer in our society. And so a child in rural Georgia should be equipped with the same educational opportunities as children in city of Atlanta, and that's based on who's in power between Republicans and Democrats, who draws the congressional district lines, and who remains in power to help facilitate these resources that are our tax dollars that should be coming back from the federal government back to the state of Georgia.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Jackson. You bring up so many great points there. And, I'm so glad you brought up students and children. Children are one of the most undercounted populations that exists nationwide, also right here in Georgia. And so parents, families, make sure that you include your children on your census form, on your questionnaire. Make sure the children are also counted because they could be left out of the resources that Representative Jackson talked about. So thank you so much for bringing that up. We're now going to go to our second poll question before we get into more questions from the audience. So again, each participant tonight can respond to this poll question by pressing a button on your phone. Hearing some of the conversation so far, I want to get a little feedback here. So what are some of the concerns that you think people in your community have with completing the 2020 census? So the question is, what are some of the concerns that you think people in your community have with completing the 2020 census? Is it 1, privacy and security concerns? Is it 2, suspicion of the government? Is it 3, lack of interest? Or is it 4, lack of understanding of the importance of the census? So again, what are some of the concerns that you think that not only black men, but anybody, but people in your community, what are some of the concerns they have with completing the 2020 census? Is it privacy and security concerns? If yes, press 1. Is it suspicion of the government? Press 2. Is it lack of interest? Press 3. Or is it lack of understanding of the importance of the census for number 4? And I'm seeing as the results come in, really is it looks like the leading majority right now say lack of understanding of the importance of the census. And so hopefully, by the time this conversation is over, we'll be equipped with more knowledge and more power to go out and explain to others in the community that may be turned off by this questionnaire on why it's so important and crucial that they respond. So I'm going to go to a question now to Mr. Homer Danley. Mr. Homer Danley out of Columbus, Georgia. Mr. Homer Danley out of Columbus, Georgia. We're going to unmute your line, and you're now live on the line to go ahead with your question.
Okay, actually, Homer Danley out of Douglasville, Georgia. I think I got logged in through Columbus, Georgia, but I live in Douglas County, Georgia, and we have some of the challenges that you've just mentioned and spoke about. I was the first black city councilman in the city of Douglasville, so I'm kind of familiar with some of the challenges. But my question was about, I know the time for the census had been attempted to be shortened by the federal government, and I think that the judge had ruled on that it could not happen, but I was not sure what the final result was of that federal ruling. They were saying they were going to have to quit early because of the election, and a judge ruled, but I was trying to get some verification on that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Danley, out of Douglas, Georgia. Thank you so much for that. Reverend Tillman, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with timelines right now and how things look on that end?
Yeah. What actually happened was an extension was asked for because of COVID-19. We had to pull everyone from out of the field. All of the work that the partnership was doing and the workers who were supposed to be out earlier knocking on doors, they could not get out and knock on doors, and we could not go and have the many assemblies that we normally would have talking to people about the census. So what the Department of Commerce asked for was actually a more time because by the Constitution, the figures have to be completed and delivered to the president by December 31st. And what happened was it seemed like it was going to be given, but then it was said we had to stick with the original constituted time, which means all of this has to be completed before December. So for it to be completed by December, we have to finish the count by September 30th, so we'll be on time. And I think the last court order was to grant the extension or give more time, and even I do not know what that is. I believe the September 17th is when they're supposed to rule on that one about granting an extension. And so I guess the larger move is that we're on time for what we're supposed to be doing. But as Representative Williams said earlier, there's a lot of things that impact this particular census, and COVID-19 is one of them, and the social injustice is another. A whole bunch of stuff is going on. But in spite of all of that, we need now, and we have an opportunity to get everyone to complete the 2020 census, because unlike any other census, we now can do it online. So you don't need that paper form. You can go to my2020census.gov and make sure everybody completes it, or pick up the phone and go ahead and call the 800 number and get that information in. And let me say that some people who've already completed their paper questionnaire may have been getting people knocking on their door saying that they've already completed it. Why are you coming back to my door? Two things for that. One reason is because once when people completed their census forms in March and early April, the census in general had to also follow the keeping everyone safe. So those processing centers that may have had, I'm using it as an example, not exact numbers, but if they may have had 400 people in the building to make sure all of that paper was processed, because of COVID-19, they had to cut those numbers down to maybe about 100. So you had less people doing it and somewhat backed up as far as the paper coming in. So if people have completed their paper questionnaire, it's not lost. We didn't throw it away. It's just taking more time to process that. And then yet, if people have completed the census also, there's a small percentage of people that will get someone else to come by just to verify information, or will call to verify information to make sure that we got a sampling that what everybody's saying is correct and people are filling them out completely. I know it's a long answer, but that's the information I have at this point.
Thank you so much, Reverend Tillman. And I think it really boils down to, let's not get caught up in timelines and deadlines. Let's just do it now. It takes 10 minutes or less for most people to do it. Let's just get it out of the way. Don't even think about what the timelines are and all that stuff. Push as many people as you can to just get it done right now. So thank you for elaborating there. We know that things are still working its way through the system with potential injunctions and things like that. But don't worry, let's get it done right now. No better time to complete the census now. So I want to turn to Commissioner Gottel out of Wilkinson County. He's the chair of the Board of Commissioners there. And so we know chairing the county commission is no easy feat. Balancing the budget, providing the necessary resources and services to residents of Wilkinson County truly depends on a fair and accurate count in the census. What types of services could be impacted if a county is undercounted in 2020 over the next decade? Commissioner Gottel.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ed, for inviting me to be on this panel today. And I really do appreciate it that you give my voice from my county. Well, it impacts everything about rural Georgia. I know that Representative Jackson spoke on education. I have to piggyback off that, and it definitely affects education in rural Georgia, and also the health care. And we are now in the process of getting the sewage and water done in my county. It's county-wide, and it took a lot of grants, CBD grants. You have to be county. You have to know how many people's in your county. And also they got criteria that you have to meet. But if we're not answering the census count, they won't know. Nobody won't know. So some of the services that is definitely impacted is education, infrastructure, libraries is included in that education, services for kids that's underfed, that's nutrition. So, and also we're having an issue with broadband and hospitals, and we tried to have a mobile hospital in our county, but it didn't work because the internet connections wasn't the Wi-Fi wasn't good at all. So it definitely affects the day-to-day operations of our county and servicing our citizens here in Wilkinson County. I just want to say again, we just got to stay motivated, and we got to push this thing to the end and make sure everybody get counted. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you for the work you do there, chairing the Board of Commissioners. So we, each topic continues to bring new questions in, and I want to get several other questions in here before we go to our closing remarks. And so we have looks like Mr. Griffin Lotson. Mr. Griffin Lotson out of Darien, Georgia. You're now live on the line if you would like to go with your question.
Yes, wondering from this distinguished panel, and I think it's in the thousands that have tuned in, and I segue to my question, how creative, and we have to now because of the pandemic, it just says we can't go door to door like we once did. That's like Dracula showing up now too, especially the senior citizens that are high risk. So how are we doing with what we're doing tonight? We've got thousands of people on the line. How are we doing it with our live church services? How are we doing it on our web pages, our internet? I think we can take advantage of this pandemic because we are reaching more people. So how creative we are of doing that now. We're forced to do it, but what's some of the creative ways we're doing it? Because I don't know. I got on this call because somebody called me, and I said yes. Okay, so that was ingenious to me. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, first of all, and thank you so much for that wonderful question. I really enjoyed that question, and I know some of our guests here are probably itching to get to answer this. And before they do, I want to go to I'm gonna put him on the spot here, Mr. Hughley out of Columbus, because I think they did something in Columbus last week, which was pretty creative and innovative. And so, would you mind sharing kind of something you did there in conjunction, I think, with the Links Incorporated in Columbus? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We've done a couple of innovative things. On last Saturday, we partnered with Links Incorporated here in Columbus, Georgia, and they actually scheduled 4 different caravans that would drive through low-performing neighborhoods. They all started at 11 o'clock. We had Sheriff Department police escort, and we had them leaving 4 different locations. The one location that I participated in, we had 25 cars. All of the cars had census signs on their windows and on the doors, and had these balloons. And you go through neighborhoods. The police officers put their blue lights on. People honked their horns. They had bull horns, telling people to complete the census, talking about the importance of it. And these caravans in 4 different sections of Columbus, with 25 or more vehicles, with elected officials, we had city councilors, state representatives, state senators in the different caravans in 4 different areas of Columbus, all going on simultaneously, honking horns and balloons, and it was a great caravan. People would come to the doors to see what's going on, and you were able to communicate with them. That was one effort. The second thing that we did in Columbus, Georgia, I had the mayor to do a proclamation and declare Friday, September 4th as Census Day in Columbus, Georgia. And what I did, we've got more than 3,000 employees. Employee had to sign a little statement verifying that they have already completed the census. They before September 4th, or they completed it on September 4th, but they had submitted their census return. But they were able, if they did that at 12 o'clock, they were able to leave at 1 o'clock, and they had the rest of the day off on us for completing the census. We had 1,500 employees to respond to complete the census on Friday, September 4th, out of 3,000. And so that was one other effort that we did. But I had the mayor to challenge all of the private businesses, Synovus, Aflac, and all of them, to join us, the Columbus Consolidated Government, in allowing opportunities for their employees to complete the census. Those are 2 different things that we did here in Columbus, Georgia.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Representative Williams.
Thank Isaiah Hughley. Down in Liberty County, we're just a little bit smaller than Columbus, but we certainly appreciate the things he has done. We've done some similar things, and I must say this. The question came from Griffin Lotson from Darien 18 years ago this time of year. He was very busy. He was my first campaign manager. But let me just say this, that we bring together a group every Wednesday of leaders, and we get reports on what we asked to be done. We have gotten the young community involved with social media to do discussions on social media. We have the Board of Education sending out over many different means that they have. I'm blessed, probably one of the few rural counties in all of Georgia that every student in my school system has an iPad, everyone. So we're able to get the message out quite effectively there. But you've got to create that excitement. I like what they did in Columbus, the motorcade particularly, but you've got to get that excitement. We've been just trying to keep it in front of people, bringing preachers and community leaders together.
Well, thank you so much for that, Representative Williams. Thank you, Mr. Hughley. Those are certainly some very creative ways that we're, partnering with other organizations on the ground to ensure that the word is getting out. I want to now go to another live question from our audience. I'm going to go to Gil Davis. Gil Davis out of Hinesville, Georgia. You are now live on the line if you'd like to go with your question. Do we still have Gil Davis on the line? All right, I don't think Mr. Davis is on the line with us anymore, but I can talk a little bit about, I think, what the premise of his question had to do with, how do we make sure our young folks know that they have the power, that they have the influence, right? How are we expressing the need and the importance of the 2020 census to them? And I think I'm gonna pick on Mayor Johnson here because I think he touched on this a little bit earlier, and it seems like he's doing some work to engage young people in the rural areas right now. So how do we make sure our young folks know that they have the power and the influence, Mayor Johnson?
I guess in all things, making them feel their importance and their significance. Everything from last year's high school graduates to even my sixth graders now. In all things, you got to do something to make them feel where they're important, that they have a level of influence, and also with that, making it fun for them. Because it's with my generation and the generation behind me, if it ain't fun to them, if you can't make it to where it's engaging or appealing to them, they ain't going to buy into it. And even with our city, one of the things we've done is, offer $5 incentives off their utility bills. And a lot of people are like, what's $5? But with the same people that really, they don't know how they're going to pay their bill, it's a lot to them. So it's basically trying to figure out what it is that specified individual or that one youth, what it is that they like, what are some trigger points, a word or something, an activity that you can engage them, and it's they'll get excited about it. And I've been doing everything, even with the school, with my students. You did your census. What's the census? Y'all sitting there talking about, well, Mr. Johnson, we ain't got nothing to do. Okay, go home and tell your mom, your dad the importance of the census so we can get that what you want here in Donaldsonville. So it's just the little things.
Well, thank you so much for that, Mayor Johnson. I think you're spot on about what we could do, there. We're coming up on, we're a little bit over the 8 o'clock hour, and I don't want to be the preacher. We told you that we were going to be about an hour long tonight. I don't want to hold you too long, but we do want to get to a couple more questions here if we can. And so we got Lula James out of Buena Vista, Georgia. Lula James out of Buena Vista, Georgia has a good question that I think we get a lot. And so, Lula James, you're live on the line to ask your question. Lula James, on the line still?
Oh yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Well, what's your question about black men in the census? What do you got for us tonight?
Yes, I just wanted to know how would they go about being counted, and are they eligible to be counted as in the county and everything, like how you was talking about that we would get funds back to the county that we are living in, and I was wondering about that, actually.
Oh, so you're talking about those that may be incarcerated, right? Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that question. So those that are incarcerated, that's a question that we get quite a bit from people. And so, Reverend Tillman, do you want to kick off the response to that question and talk a little bit about the process there?
Yes, the first piece is what, again, Representative Al Williams said, and it's already been stated. If they have been incarcerated and they're out, they need to make sure they get counted. I know we call them returning citizens, and they come back and they can't vote until they actually get off the paper and everything else. They don't need to be offered anything as far as it relates to responding to the census by going to my2020census.gov. For those who are incarcerated in jail or in prison, they're counted as a part of the group quarters. They're counted where they are, and they're counted in that particular county, in that particular area where they are. So that is one of the areas of men being counted, or women being counted too. That's one of the very areas where it's the least difficult to count. Matter of fact, I'm told that they do a count every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. But we get the information
100%.
from that particular institution each time.
Thank you so much, Reverend Tillman, for that response and indicating sort of how those that are incarcerated currently, how they're counted there in the facility where they reside, and they're counted as residents of that city or that county. So the monies go into that city and county and not into the areas in which they come from. We know that there's a bunch of controversy around that too, and so we know that those are questions that we get asked a lot of times, and so we're thankful, Ms. James, for that question out of Buena Vista, Georgia. I want to now go to a lightning round of closing comments from our special guests. Thank you so much for those that have tuned in, and we do have I know a couple of folks that had some questions remaining. And we will make sure at Faircount and Pluribus Unum, our partner here with this Census in the South virtual bus tour, we will follow up to make sure that your questions are answered after this event. So I want to start the closing round here with Representative Jackson. So Representative Jackson, we're going to do a 30-second call to action per special guest to close out tonight. Kick us off.
Again, thank you, Ed. Really appreciate it. It was a very humbling experience to be a panelist. The call to action is very clear. This is not about if you're a Republican or Democrat. This is not about child support or citizenship. This is solely about getting those dollars, those resource dollars from the federal government back to Georgia to help facilitate those mandates, to help your community, our community, to thrive and to make sure that our family have the absolute best quality of life. So I strongly suggest everyone to go to my2020census.gov, my2020census.gov. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Jackson. Going to Commissioner Gotell out of Wilkinson County. Close us out with your 30 seconds.
All right, just want to thank y'all once again for having me a part of this panel. It's my first time, and it really intrigued me tonight because I'm standing up with the AME Church on the leadership of Bishop Jackson, which he has deemed us to get out there and get people in our community to fill out the census count. And I just put it like this: if you're in rural Georgia, you really, really need to fill out your census count. And thank you again, Ed.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Ed. We can't overstate it. We have got to get out there. Let's do a little unscientific thing. Everybody you run into from now until the final day, ask them, have they done their census, and has their neighbor participated? And don't forget the lie factor. If they say, yes, I have, so, well, I didn't see your name yesterday when I was looking over the list, then the truth will come out. But let's push them hard. Let's make everybody get out there, get on the list. It is so vitally important. and let's leave here with the newfound urgency to make it happen. Thanks again, Ed.
Thank you so much, Representative Williams. Mayor Johnson.
Yes, sir. Again, humble, and I'm very blessed to be a part of this panel. And like you said, call to action is just that. You have a part to play in terms of acting, and you got to start complaining about the problem. And I've met so many people around here in Donaldsonville, they want to complain about things, but they're not doing their part to act. So please complete your census. Encourage others to complete their census if you completed your census, because we're all in this together. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hughley.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you to our host, Fair Count, and EPU. I want to just say to have an undercount is a threat to us in more ways than one. We must not let this happen. Get on board, complete the census. It's about money. It's about fair representation. It's about redistricting. Join us, and let's get this done. Complete the census.
Thank you so much. And then, Reverend Tillman, go ahead and close us out in your own way. I think you've heard that before.
I bet so.
Yes, sir. Listen, I'm in Savannah, but as we move around, I am so grateful again to you, Brother Ed Reed, and to Fair Count and the EPU for having this. And as you're going around the state, I can see now we have folks from North Georgia, South Georgia, Middle Georgia, Rural Georgia, Urban Georgia, and I've listened, and part of what I've heard was also this about young people. We have to take the opportunity now to give them an opportunity to figure out a way for them to be a part of what we're doing. Let's listen to them, hear what they have to say, and do our best not to tell them that's stupid, that's dumb, you haven't lived long enough to know what you're talking about, because they have a way of reaching each other that we don't have. And so in part of this, let's get them to do that. I was excited when I heard about what Columbus did, and we're trying to get every community to do what Columbus did, to be able to go through the communities, be able to have caravans, maybe have somebody who has some hot dogs maybe to pass out or something that people will come. Now, we don't want people to congregate because we still know we're in COVID-19, but we want people to be able to hear the excitement about this 2020 census, and have a sign up, let them know they could go to my2020census.gov, or they can call for English. They can call 844-330-2020, 844-330-2020, and we got a Spanish number. We have a Creole number. We have a number for all languages. But we're encouraging everybody to please participate. It is extremely important. And again, keep this in mind. The money does not follow the need. The money follows the numbers. No matter what the need is in our community, if the numbers are not there, the money won't come. So we're asking everybody to please make sure we complete the 2020 census and get counted before September the 30th. Everyone counts. Everyone needs to get counted, and we need everyone to participate. Lastly, what Bishop Jackson has said, and I was able to say this, people say, well, how do I qualify? There's only one qualification you need to participate in the census. Just one qualification. And to pass that, all you got to do is, if you're breathing on American soil, and I'm paraphrasing from the Word of God, and you who attend church, you know what I'm saying. The Bible says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. But what Bishop Jackson and Bishop Jackson and Thurman Tillman is saying, let everything that has breath complete the 2020 census.
I love it. He really did take me up on that and close out in his own way. So I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of our featured guests and panelists tonight. We're elated to have you as a part of this Census in the South virtual bus tour, talking about the importance of the census and what it means for our community, specifically Black men. You can find out more information about the Census in the South Road to Recovery virtual bus tour by visiting censusindthesouth.org. Again, censusindthesouth.org. If you wait a second at the very end of this call, you'll be able to leave a message detailing why the 2020 census is important to you. So hang on for just a few minutes. You can leave a message about why the 2020 census is important to you. Again, on behalf of Fair Count, Pluribus Unum, and our special guest tonight, thank you for joining tonight's call. Remember, Black men count. Have a great night. Stay safe.